who made the decision not to take a brief to the DPB?
Senator, that was our legal, our investigations area and the National Operations Manager in conjunction with the General Manager at the time.
Okay.
And I would have been aware of that.
Well, we'll get to that, I promise you. So who is the legal... This is in-house counsel?
Yes,
and
Senator. His
or her name?
Our legal counsel is Mr. Clinton McKenzie.
Clinton McKenzie, yeah. Mr. McKenzie didn't have any delegated authority. He gives advice, correct? That's
Correct.
what lawyers do. And then they receive instructions, correct? To whom did Mr. Clinton McKenzie give advice? And then whom instructed Mr. McKenzie not to send a brief to the DPP?
Senator, I will have to take that on notice.
No, sir. Are you telling me, as head of this organisation, you don't know the answer to that question?
Senator, I will have to take that on notice.
You don't know, you don't have an independent recollection of who that might be? Mr. Kinley, seriously. So we know it wasn't you now, don't we?
Senator, I was certainly aware that we were not proceeding to a brief of evidence.
Did you receive advice of Mr. McKenzie that caused you then to make a decision to instruct Mr. McKenzie or any other person not to send a brief to the DPP? Was that you?
Senator, again...
No, Mr. Kinley, you're not no escape on this.
Senator, I will say it's me because if AMSA decided to do that,
all right,
clearly that's my responsibility.
It was you that made the decision not to send a brief to the DPP. So when did Mr. McKenzie brief you so that you could make that informed decision?
Senator, I will have to go back and check the records.
Oh, Mr. Kinley, honestly, I've been at this 5 or 6 years, it's not a long time. You're starting to get into the category with the worst witness that I've had in front of me in 6 years. Listen to your answers to my questions, sir. You don't even know whether the lawyer briefed you. You don't even know whether you made the decision not to send a brief to the DPP. You've admitted you don't know who did. This is a schmozzle, sir. This is a schmozzle. So do we want to try just to go through it one more time? How many meetings did you have with Mr. McKenzie, the lawyer, to discuss this particular issue? And we'll call these people. We're going to have an inquiry now. We're going to call these people. So we'll know the answer to my question eventually. How many times did you have a meeting with Mr. McKenzie in relation to the 1066 matter?
Senator, I will have to take that on notice.
Do you have an independent recollection of ever meeting Mr. McKenzie on the 1066 matter?
I know we've discussed it in the past, Senator.
You and Mr. McKenzie have had discussions about the 1066 matter?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so that was the reason for that meeting between you and Mr. McKenzie was to discuss the 1066, now that you've recalled you've had a discussion with him? Was that the reason for the meeting with Mr. McKenzie?
It would have been one of the things, one of the reasons.
No,
for the
I'm
meeting,
asking
Senator.
your independent recollection now, sir. Not asking you to surmise that, yep, it would have been that. I want to know from your independent recollection whether your meetings with Mr. McKenzie were specifically about 1066. So think back about your meetings with Mr. McKenzie.
And there would have been meetings with Mr. McKenzie on the 1066.
I would have
Senator,
rang my mother too, frequently, but I can't tell you what day. I'm asking you from your independent record. This is a matter where a man has died. You are, what's the name of your organisation again? Just say it out so we can all hear it.
Australian Maritime Safety Authority.
Safety. You've got a man who's died off a vessel, which is at the very heart of what you do and exist for. You are the CEO, and since I've been asking you questions, you can't remember one simple thing in relation to this serious event. Not as if you're dealing with one of these at morning tea, and again in the afternoon, and again tomorrow, and 10 a week, 2 in the last calendar year. And you can't remember independently having spoken to the in-house counsel upon whose advice you would have had to rely. Well, let me ask you that. Was it on Mr. Mackenzie's advice that you relied to make a decision not to send this to the DPP?
Senator, my recollection is that it was from the manager investigations.
So, Mr. Marsh.
And there were discussions that were had.
Okay, so you only had. Well, this. You're going to have trouble climbing this hill. Your one meeting with Mr. Marsh, your one meeting, you've given evidence to that, was so late in the piece that he was going to advise you not to send a brief to the DPP. So you didn't have any briefings of Mr. Marsh over the period that Mr. Marsh and his team were investigating the matter. That is absolutely extraordinary. Where is Mr. Marsh located relative to where you are located?
He is in our Canberra office, Senator.
And you're in the Canberra office?
Yes, Senator.
How many paces do you think between your door and Mr. Marsh's door?
At the time, Senator, it would have been across the road in Mort Street, I think.
Okay. So, up until when you made the decision not to send it to the DPP, how long after the event was that?
And that would have been, and again, in my recollection, Senator, it was a decision, and there were discussions with the DPP over the time from the incident.
How long after the man died did you make your decision not to send a brief to the DPP?
And I think that was in 2016, Senator. 2014.
So what's the time lapse here? I can go and get the brief if you want to sit and wait patiently.
Sorry, Senator. The incident happened in 2014, which is why I'm frankly having trouble having independent recollection.
Well, you're not having as much trouble as I am. So Mr. Marsh comes to you on his one and only briefing with you on your evidence, must have been in 2016, to tell you or to give you advice not to exercise your discretion to forward a brief to the DPP. Are we agreed on that, at least, on your evidence so far? Well, that is your evidence, Mr. Kinsley. So my question to you is, between the point of death, do we know the date of the death?
I'm just going to try and find the...
Between the point that the matter's reported to your organisation and the only conversation you had with Mr. Marsh, we've gone 2 years where on your evidence you have no recollection of being briefed by anybody.
So, sorry, Senator. The incident happened in November 2014. And again, I was certainly aware, and we were made aware, that WA Police and WA DOT did their investigations. There was
who made you aware of that? Because we know now it's not Mr. Marsh.
Well, Senator, it would have been a number of people. There was Mr. Marsh involved. There would have been Mr. Hemming, who was the National Operations Manager.
Yes.
And also the General Manager, which was Mr.
Try and
Fraden.
restore your position. You're not suggesting that when they come, are you now suggesting that when these people come to you and briefed, and well, I won't use the word brief because you don't, when these people have come to you and advised you that the Western Australian Police are involved, this organisation's involved, that organisation's involved, and here we are, that wasn't a briefing? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Kinley?
Senator, there was certainly... I was certainly made aware of the incident. I was certainly made aware they were investigating. We had legal action that took place when we prohibited the other vessels from operating.
Did you have a role in that? Did you have a role in that, Mr. Kinley?
Sorry, Senator?
Did you have a role in that decision?
To prohibit the vessel operations?
No, with respect to the civil case.
No, well, the vessel was prohibited operating by a delegate in West Australia.
Yes. Were you briefed on
the
delegate's deliberations?
On the federal court action because they sought a federal court injunction to have those prohibitions lifted.
Yes.
And I was certainly aware of that legal action that took place.
Were you the respondent in that legal action?
Yes.
Do you know what you were the respondent?
AMSA, well,
okay.
As the national regulator.
So, as the respondent, we now know you haven't talked to the legal counsel internally. So, was that briefed out? was it?
And again, Senator, I would have spoken to our legal counsel internally as well, to Mr. McKenzie and
No,
our
but not
other
about 10, not about
in-house lawyers.
1066 you wouldn't, because you've given evidence to that effect.
Again, Senator, I would have spoken to the in-house counsel about 1066, the other vessels as well, and the Dolphin Dive Centre.